Hey everyone. Welcome to another one of my guides. For the first of the three 2.5 characters, we have Feixiao, one of the most universally liked characters in the game who also has quite a great kit too. Feixiao is the kind of character that falls into the breaks the damage counter whenever she presses her ultimate tier, as her entire kit and playstyle is all reliant on stacking her ultimate. If that sounds familiar to a Galaxy Ranger that released fairly recently, you would be pretty wrong considering they work very differently. Over the past few weeks, Feixiao has been through quite the extensive list of changes in the past couple of weeks, but I can safely say she ended up in a really good position, rivaling the other top-tier DPS characters in the game in terms of damage and also being really fun and easy to play. In this video I'll provide a ton of finalized calcs and some extra fun stuff, like some damage comparisons to the other top-tier carries in the game. But that's enough yapping from me, let's get started. Before we actually get into the guide section, I'll quickly summarize Feixiao's kit as it's quite wordy and hard to digest. Feixiao's talent is essentially the most important thing in her kit, enabling her powerful ultimate and buffing her significantly. How it works is that every 2 attacks from allies, whether this be follow-up attacks, basic attacks or ultimates, basically everything but Dot and Feixiao's own ultimate will count towards this. When Feixiao gets 6 of these stacks, she can use her ultimate and she can overflow her stacks up to 12, which means you can theoretically use 2 ultimates in a row back to back, which is pretty interesting to me. When allies use an attack, Feixiao will also fire off a follow-up attack, similar to how Match's one works, being once per turn and resetting at the start of Feixiao's turn. If that wasn't enough, she also gets a free 60% damage bonus whenever she performs her follow-up lasting for 2 turns, making her do even more damage. And yes, that was literally just her talent. It gets simpler from here on though, so stay seated. Feixiao's skill does some wind damage and triggers her talent follow-up attack. Just like Dr. Ratio, there's not much else to this ability. But on the other hand, her ultimate is really complex. To simplify, she does a lot of single target damage to an enemy, split into 6 damage instances with a final finisher that does a ton of damage. This ultimate also has Omni Break built into it, and Feixiao's weakness breaking efficiency is increased for the ultimate's duration provided the enemy isn't broken. This is where the majority of Feixiao's damage comes from, and it's how she does the incredibly large numbers in Memory of Chaos. Her traces mostly focus on buffing her own damage and helping her ultimate stack generation by giving her some stacks at the start of battle, and her mini traces give her some attack and some crit rate. And that's about it for the Feixiao kit speedrun, so let's actually get started with the guide part of the video. Feixiao's planar options are pretty simple. The new set that's tailor-made for her is obviously her best option, being Duran. This gives her 25% bonus damage on her follow-up attacks and an extra 25 crit damage. Since her teammates will be constantly doing follow-ups, she can stack this very quickly, which makes this her best in-slot planar set. Glameth is next up in line, with it being extremely strong as well, since she has such a high base speed. Getting 160 for the secondary effect is really easy for her. Up next comes Azumo, Space Sealing Station and Inert Salsodo, all of these being really solid options with great secondary effects for Feixiao. And if you're like me and only farmed World 7 for the past year, Rutiland Arena is alright on her too. Here's a compiled list of everything together. Her Relic options are even easier than the planars, with there only being 4 real contenders here. Her best in-slot Relic set is the Valor set, as it provides her with some much-needed ultimate damage percent, crit rate and attack, which puts this above the other sets by quite a bit. The other 3 sets listed here are all also strong in their own regard, but I would personally recommend running a 2-piece over the other 2, as it's just simply easier to farm. Here's another comparison sheet between them all. The main stats you want on Feixiao generally depend on what team you plan to run her in, but like always you want a crit body on her and an attack rope, as these are the staple of crit scaling damage dealers. However, the boots and orb options is where things vary, as there are 2 viable options for both. I would personally pick speed boots over attack boots for Feixiao. Even if her base speed is quite high, it doesn't hurt your damage much at all and helps her ultimate stack generation. However, When it comes to orb options, either attack or wind damage are completely viable on her, coming down to whichever has better sub-stats. So an optimal Feixiao would have a crit body, speed boots, wind or attack damage orb and an attack rope. Moving on to Feixiao's Lightcone options, they are spread out as you'd probably expect, as due to the fact that her Lightcone is just simply that good, giving 54% defense ignore on her ultimate with an extremely high base attack and tons of crit rate too. This Lightcone is nothing short of perfect for Feixiao, and it's not really surprising that it's quite far ahead of the other options. Feixiao's signature and topazes compete pretty well, with topazes in particular not just buffing her, but buffing everyone in the team's damage too. But they still get outclassed by Feixiao's signature by quite a bit. The free-to-play options for Feixiao are quite few, but they are fairly strong in their own aspect when their secondary conditions are met, and all of them are more than usable on her. Feixiao's E1 increases her ultimate damage significantly, being around a 20% increase to her damage and being her best value Eidolon overall in my opinion. I would still recommend pulling her Lightcone over her E1, but both are really strong options and either one works well. Her E2 essentially increases her ultimate generation by up to 50% by making her follow-up attack give stacks towards her ultimate as well. This makes her be able to fire off her ultimate around 25 to 50% more than usual, which ends up increasing her damage by quite a lot, varying on the team. Her E4 is a simple damage increase to all follow-up attacks, being okay at best, but her E6 is really incredible. It not only gives her 20% resistance penetration, but also makes her talent do nuke level damage by more than doubling its multiplier and also making it count as ultimate damage too, so it can be affected by things such as her Lightcone. This is one of the best E6s in the game, and I think sounds very fun to use as well. Anyways, that's all I have to say. Thank you for watching. If you found this guide helpful, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe for more content like this. Feel free to share your thoughts or questions in the comments below, but until next time, I'll catch you guys in the next video.